There is a silent cost to being the person who always understands everyone else. It is the cost that rarely appears on a bill, never shows up in a bank account, and yet somehow takes more from you than almost anything else in life. It is the cost of carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. If you are an exhausted empath, you already know what this feels like. You walk into a room and instantly feel the tension. You notice the disappointment hidden behind a smile. You sense the frustration behind someone's polite words. You absorb emotions the way a sponge absorbs water. And over time, that sponge becomes so saturated that it cannot hold another drop. The strange thing is that many empaths believe their exhaustion is proof of their goodness. They think the more drained they are, the more caring they have been, the more overwhelmed they feel, the more compassionate they must be. But exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It is not evidence that you are winning at life. It is evidence that something in your system needs attention. The first self-care tip is to stop treating your energy like it is unlimited. Most people guard their money more carefully than they guard their emotional resources. Think about that for a moment. If a stranger asked for $100 every day, eventually you would say no. Yet countless empaths hand out attention, patience, emotional labor, and understanding to anyone who asks, regardless of the cost. Your energy is a resource. Treat it like one. Every time you say yes to something, you are spending it. Spend it intentionally. The second self-care tip is to learn the difference between understanding and carrying. You can understand someone's pain without making it your responsibility. You can care about someone's struggle without becoming trapped inside it. Many empaths cross this line without realizing it. They mistake compassion for obligation. They believe that if they understand someone's suffering, they must also solve it. But understanding is not ownership. You can stand beside someone without carrying them on your back. The third self-care tip is to create boundaries before you need them. Most people wait until they are overwhelmed before they begin protecting themselves. That is like waiting until your house is flooded before deciding to build a roof. Boundaries work best when they exist in advance. Decide how much access people have to your time. Decide how much emotional labor you can realistically provide. Decide what behaviors you will no longer tolerate. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are filters designed to let the right people in. The fourth self-care tip is to stop apologizing for needing recovery time. An exhausted empath often feels guilty for resting. They feel guilty for saying no. They feel guilty for stepping away. But recovery is not selfish. Recovery is maintenance. Nobody feels guilty for charging their phone. Nobody apologizes for putting fuel in their car. Yet people apologize for restoring the very energy that allows them to function. Rest is not a reward you earn after destroying yourself. It is a requirement for sustainable living. The fifth self-care tip is to pay attention to what your body is telling you. Long before burnout arrives, your body starts sending messages. The problem is that many empaths are so focused on everyone else's emotional signals that they ignore their own physical signals. Tight shoulders, poor sleep, constant fatigue, headaches, irritability, difficulty concentrating. These are not random inconveniences. They are information. Your body is speaking. Start listening. The sixth self-care tip is to spend time alone without feeling guilty about it. Solitude is not isolation. Solitude is recalibration. There is a difference. When an empath spends too much time processing other people's emotions, their internal compass begins to lose accuracy. Quiet time allows you to hear your own thoughts again. It allows your emotional system to separate what belongs to you from what belongs to everyone else. The seventh self-care tip is to stop measuring your worth by how much you sacrifice. This belief has exhausted more empaths than almost anything else. Somewhere along the way, many people learned that their value comes from being needed. They learned that being useful is the same thing as being lovable. But your worth is not determined by how much pain you absorb, how many problems you solve, or how many people depend on you. Your value exists before you rescue anyone. The eighth self-care tip is to become selective about the environments you enter. Every environment influences your emotional state. Some places energize you, others drain you. Some people inspire growth. Others create constant emotional turbulence. Pay attention to patterns. If you consistently leave certain interactions feeling depleted, that information matters. Protecting your environment is not weakness, it is wisdom. The ninth self-care tip is to remember that your empathy is a gift only when it is balanced. Uncontrolled empathy becomes emotional flooding. Healthy empathy becomes strength. The goal is not to care less. The goal is to care intelligently. The goal is not to shut down your compassion. The goal is to direct it in a way that does not destroy you. The world needs compassionate people. It needs listeners. It needs individuals who can understand what others are feeling. But the world does not need more exhausted souls running on empty. You were not given empathy so that you could become a permanent emotional storage unit for everyone around you. You were given empathy so that you could create understanding, connection, and healing. And none of those things are possible if you are constantly depleted. So, today, make a decision. Stop treating yourself as the last person on your priority list. Stop believing that self-neglect is proof of compassion. Stop confusing burnout with purpose. Your energy matters, your peace matters, your health matters. The strongest empath is not the one who carries the most weight. The strongest empath is the one who knows which weight belongs to them and which weight must be set down. That is not selfishness. That is wisdom. And wisdom is what transforms empathy from a burden into a superpower. The challenge for many exhausted empaths is not that they lack strength. The challenge is that they have been strong for so long that they no longer recognize when strength has turned into self-abandonment. There comes a point when constantly being available for everyone else stops being generosity and starts becoming a habit of neglecting yourself. The danger is that this habit can feel noble. It can feel virtuous. It can even earn praise from other people. They call you dependable. They call you caring. They call you selfless. But praise does not always mean something is healthy. Think about the people who reach out to you. Some contact you because they value you. Others contact you because they value access to you. Those are not the same thing. One of the most important skills an empath can develop is the ability to tell the difference. The people who value you will respect your limits. The people who value access to you will resent your limits. Pay close attention to how people react when you establish boundaries. Their reaction often reveals their true expectations. Many exhausted empaths secretly believe that if they stop giving so much, people will leave. They fear that their usefulness is the foundation of their relationships. This creates a dangerous cycle. The more they fear losing people, the more they overextend themselves. The more they overextend themselves, the more exhausted they become. The more exhausted they become, the more they rely on approval from others to justify their sacrifices. And the cycle continues. But here is a truth that changes everything. Healthy relationships do not require constant self-sacrifice to survive. If a relationship collapses the moment you stop overgiving, the relationship was not being sustained by connection. It was being sustained by imbalance. Real connection can survive boundaries. Real connection can survive honesty. Real connection can survive your decision to take care of yourself. Another important lesson for exhausted empaths is understanding emotional responsibility. Every person is responsible for managing their own emotions. That statement may sound simple, but its implications are profound. You are not responsible for regulating every uncomfortable feeling another person experiences. You are not responsible for preventing disappointment at all costs. You are not responsible for making everyone happy. Many empaths spend years trying to prevent discomfort in the people around them. They soften every truth. They avoid every conflict. They anticipate every emotional reaction. They walk through life, carefully managing the emotional climate around them. The result is not peace. The result is exhaustion. At some point, you must realize that protecting people from every uncomfortable emotion is impossible. Growth often requires discomfort. Change often requires discomfort. Honest conversations often require discomfort. If you spend your life trying to eliminate all discomfort from the experiences of others, you will eventually eliminate your own peace in the process. One of the most powerful forms of self-care is emotional clarity. Emotional clarity means knowing what belongs to you and what does not. Imagine walking through a crowded room where everyone is carrying backpacks. Some backpacks contain fear, some contain anger, some contain disappointment, some contain stress. An exhausted empath often walks through that room and starts collecting backpacks. Without realizing it, they begin carrying burdens that were never theirs. Emotional clarity means stopping long enough to ask a simple question. Is this feeling actually mine? That question can be life-changing. Not every emotion you experience originates within you. Sometimes you are reacting to the emotional energy of an environment. Sometimes you are responding to the stress of people around you. Sometimes you are carrying concerns that do not belong to your life at all. The moment you begin separating your emotions from the emotions of others, your mental landscape becomes far easier to navigate. Another self-care practice that deserves attention is learning to tolerate silence. Many empaths rush to fill every silence. They answer messages immediately. They respond to every request instantly. They feel pressure to resolve every tension as quickly as possible. But silence has value. Silence creates space. Silence allows emotions to settle. Silence gives clarity a chance to emerge. You do not owe immediate access to everyone. You do not owe immediate answers. You do not owe immediate solutions. Sometimes the healthiest response is a pause. Not because you are avoiding responsibility, but because you are respecting your own mental and emotional bandwidth. There is also tremendous power in becoming comfortable with disappointing people. That statement may sound uncomfortable, especially for an empath, but consider the alternative. If your goal is to avoid disappointing anyone, you will spend your life disappointing yourself. Every meaningful boundary disappoints someone. Every act of self-respect disappoints someone who benefited from your lack of self-respect. Every increase in standards disappoints someone who preferred lower standards. This is not a reason to become cold or uncaring. It is simply a reminder that not all disappointment is harmful. Sometimes disappointment is the natural result of healthy change. Many exhausted empaths are carrying an invisible expectation that they must be everything for everyone. They want to be supportive, understanding, patient, available, reliable, encouraging, compassionate, and endlessly accommodating. The intention is admirable. The expectation is impossible. You are human. You have limits. You have needs. You have days when your energy is low. You have moments when you require support rather than providing it. Accepting these realities is not weakness. It is maturity. One of the most liberating realizations an empath can have is that people are often more resilient than they appear. You do not have to rescue everyone from every challenge. You do not have to solve every problem. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is the opportunity to develop their own strength. When you constantly intervene, you may unintentionally prevent growth. When you constantly rescue, you may unintentionally create dependency. When you constantly absorb responsibility, you may unintentionally teach others to avoid responsibility. Empathy does not mean removing every obstacle from another person's path. Sometimes empathy means believing they are capable of navigating the obstacle themselves. As you continue your journey toward healthier self-care, remember that healing rarely happens through dramatic transformations. More often, it happens through small decisions repeated consistently over time. One boundary, one honest conversation, one evening of rest, one moment of choosing yourself instead of automatically choosing everyone else. Those moments may seem insignificant in isolation, but over weeks, months, and years, they reshape your life. You begin waking up with more energy. You begin feeling less resentment. You begin experiencing greater emotional stability. You begin recognizing your own needs without guilt. And perhaps most importantly, you begin discovering that self-care is not a departure from compassion. It is what allows compassion to remain sustainable. The exhausted empath often believes they must choose between caring for others and caring for themselves. But that is a false choice. The healthiest version of empathy includes both. It recognizes that your well-being matters just as much as the well-being of the people you support. The goal is not to become less compassionate. The goal is to become compassionately balanced. Because when empathy is supported by boundaries, self-respect, recovery, and emotional clarity, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in the world. It allows you to help without being consumed. It allows you to care without collapsing. It allows you to give without constantly running empty. And that is where true strength begins. There is a moment that arrives in the life of almost every exhausted empath. It is not dramatic. There are no flashing lights, no grand announcement, no audience applauding as the realization appears. It arrives quietly, often after years of giving, years of carrying, years of showing up for everyone else. It is the moment when you begin asking yourself a question you may have avoided for a very long time. What about me? At first, that question can feel uncomfortable. Some people have spent so many years focusing outward that turning their attention inward feels unnatural. They know exactly how to identify the needs of others, but struggle to identify their own. They can sense emotional shifts in a room within seconds, yet they cannot easily explain what they themselves are feeling. This disconnect does not happen overnight. It develops gradually through repetition. Every time you ignore your own needs to meet someone else's needs, you strengthen the habit. Every time you silence your own feelings to accommodate another person's feelings, you strengthen the habit. Every time you place yourself at the bottom of your own priority list, you strengthen the habit. Eventually, the habit becomes your identity. You become known as the helper, the supporter, the listener, the reliable one, the strong one. And while those qualities may be admirable, they can also become a prison if they are the only parts of yourself you allow to exist. Because here's what many exhausted empaths never realize. Strength is not the absence of need. Real strength includes the courage to acknowledge your needs. Real strength includes asking for support when support is necessary. Real strength includes recognizing when you have reached your limit. The strongest people are not those who never break. They are those who recognize the signs before breaking becomes inevitable. One of the greatest acts of self-care is developing self-awareness without self-judgment. Most people are aware of themselves only when something goes wrong. They notice their emotions after they become overwhelmed. They notice their stress after burnout arrives. They notice their exhaustion after their energy is completely depleted. But awareness becomes powerful when it arrives earlier. Notice your emotions before they become emotional storms. Notice your stress before it becomes chronic pressure. Notice your fatigue before it becomes complete exhaustion. Awareness creates options. Without awareness, you are reacting. With awareness, you are choosing. The difference between those two states can transform your life.